lieutenant and tell him that the raid's coming. It so happened that fellow was on duty that morning. And I called and told him I was airborne with one airplane. They sent me to Barber's Point, where we had a coast artillery unit, that they'd had an invasion reported there, and I went down, and of course there was no invasion. So then as I came back, I picked up 3 other P-40s that got off. One was Gabreski, one was Lieutenant Hank Lawrence, and the other was a lieutenant by the name of Shiplett, and they were all 3 from my squadron, and so I joined up with them, and then I wound up with 4 airplanes, and they said, we got some bombers at Hickam that we want you to escort out to look for the Japanese fleet. So we turned over and were just on the north side of Pearl Harbor, and by that time there was a few Beaufort guns and a few other Navy guns in operation, and we started seeing black spots around us, and we pulled off back into a safer area, and I landed and told them that they had to get the Navy under control if they wanted any escort for those bombers out of Hickam.
That went over like
You said that they congregated the airplanes back together again, like the night before or Saturday before the attack.
What was the idea? Well, I think we had movement orders to send a squadron to Wake Island. And we collected those airplanes together that were going to go to Wake Island. And I think that was the idea of getting them all, rather than having them parked normally.
What do you think when they treated General Sharp and Admiral Kimmel after that?
Well, I don't know how much they knew. I don't know how much the Pentagon had told them, but they either didn't have the information or they used it very poorly. I really had no idea.
When you were with the nuclear bomb group in England, where were you supposed to drop the bombs? Can you even say about that today?
Well, we had a lot of targets. East Germany was of course all communists at that time, and Poland, and we had targets all along that border. That's all the range we had in the P-40. We had some targets that we'd have to come back and bail out over the North Sea, or try to land in Sweden or Norway if we couldn't get home. They were that deep into it.
What was your favorite airplane you flew?
Well, when I went to Clovis, New Mexico, we had F-86H's. The F-86 you'll see out here is the F-86A or B or E maybe, but that airplane would do .96. The H was like that, but I loved that H because the F-86 had a 54 100-pound thrust engine, but the F-86H had a 9,000-pound thrust engine, and we could do at 30,000 feet what you could do with the H at 20,000 feet. It was because of the extra power, and that's the one I won the gunnery meet in, and I just enjoyed flying that airplane. It was a beautiful airplane. It did not have the afterburner. The F-100 had the afterburner, and I remember Sam Johnson, who was actually my tactical officer in the 48th Fighter Wing. I called him up one day and I said, Sam, I want you to show me what you're trying to teach these kids about tactics. So we went out in a 2-place F-100, and as an airplane went by us way above, and he says, Colonel, there's a hostile airplane up there, let's see you get it. And I hit that AB and took it up and did a hammerhead stall up on that guy's tail. And Sam Johnson, from then on out, that was his great story about his colonel doing a hammerhead stall on the F-100 on the tail of a bogey airplane. Sam Johnson happened to be a prisoner of war in the Vietnam War, and he was there for 6 years in solitary confinement or 4 years because he'd never tell them anything but his name, rank, and serial number. When the war was over with, he came back to Holloman Air Force Base, and he was, they gave him an F-15 wing there, and I was working for Hughes Aircraft Company, and I had a secret radar test down at Holloman. I went down there with one of my engineers, and I said, "You want to meet Sam Johnson?" And he said, "I sure do." And so we went in and met Sam Johnson, and I wanted to tell this guy all about Sam being a prisoner of war for 6 years in the Vietnam War, and he says, "Colonel, you're in my office and I'm going to tell the stories." And he told that story about me getting on the tail of that hostile airplane.
You mentioned working with the natives in New Guinea, could you tell us anything about your interactions with them, their attitudes, how they saw the situation there in the Pacific? And
What, the natives of New Guinea?
yeah, the natives, did you work with them much?
No, I didn't, but I could tell you that they were very primitive people, the natives that we knew. And, you know, they lived in very primitive conditions and wore very few clothes. Of course, it's an equatorial kind of a climate. In Milne Bay, we have 300 inches of rain a year down there, and so you people living here on the edge of the desert know what that would be. But no, they were very primitive people. They had Aborigines over there. As a matter of fact, when we were there, we had there was one group back of Wewak, west of Wewak in the jungles, who were really headhunters, and they gained their strength by eating you. They ate their enemies, and that's how they gained their strength, according to their belief. And we call them headhunters. And as a matter of fact, that was the code name for one of my squadrons. The 80th was the headhunter squadron. And as a matter of fact, we didn't want to bail out over that jungle. We'd rather bail out over the ocean. All right, thank you very much. One more question?
You're in the New Guinea area. Did you know Major Floyd Pell from Ogden, who was killed in March or April of '42?
Floyd Pell?
In the Fort Moresby area. Pell.
Well, he would have been there before I got there because I was in Hawaii at that time. I didn't get to New Guinea until, over in that theater until July of '42. And undoubtedly he was killed in probably the early part of it. That was when, I didn't know.
Oh, you need your paycheck here. Just happens to be an old P-38. Thank you. This has been a very enjoyable hour.
Let me tell you something. As you walk into the museum out there, you'll see a pilot with his parachute sitting on a bench or something, reading a letter. And behind it there is a poem that is written that was put there without permission, but this is the author of that poem. Thank you.
On search, they want to have high technology that they can, they want to have a military that can hold its head up with other militaries. They got more people than anything in the world, and they want to have a military that goes with it. I know a lot of Chinese, I deal a lot with them. They are primitive, they are backwards, but not and they've got a lot of capability. Can you see them coming out of the caves and making that thing across there and jumping it? Yes, sir. I gave you my view, but I grant you that there's another side of the coin. But, yes, sir, we can do the mission of the SR-71 with satellites. If we got enough of them, if we got them in the right place, if we can put them in the right place at the right time. If we can put them under the control of the man that needs them. See, there's some real conceptual arguments about it. Yeah, we got it, but I can't control it. I can't get it when I need it. I want to know what's happening in my front yard. You're telling me what's happening, you know, in some vast array of the Atlantic Ocean. I want to know what's happening in my front yard. No operational commander ever gets enough intelligence. And if he gets enough, he's not sure that he's got it all, so he wants more. You know, you just can't know enough about the enemy. That argument raged during the Gulf War. Fortunately, we had some intelligence, not enough. A lot of it was wrong. There's an old adage in the intelligence community: I know what I know, but I don't know what I don't know. And that's scary. This man. That's what I said in one. First, it was built in secrecy. Nobody knew it was being built. It was flying and operational before 99.99% of the people in the United States even knew it existed. It took, in those days, 25 years to build that airplane. If you had not done it in secret, it would have probably taken 40 years. But we did it with a guy named Kelly Johnson and Ben Rich, operating out of Sound of Freedom, operating out of a little place in the desert called the Skunk Works. Now in today's world, you can hardly keep that quiet anymore. You know, some weenie from the Washington Post would get his head under the tent, you know, blow it off. But the airplane was built because we had an engine that enabled it to be built. We switched from the existing engine and made a tremendously powerful engine. And then we had technology, titanium technology, that enabled it to build an airplane that sustained stem temperatures of 600 and 700 degrees. That airplane glows red when it's flying at free fall. And we had a national desire to do it. And we did it. It's like going to the moon. Will you go to the moon again? You know, no. We did it. But a lot of people think because you can do it and you did it, that it's easy to do. It's not. I was going to talk about this a little bit tonight, but it's a rule of thumb. Everything that we fought the Gulf War with was engendered in the minds of responsible people at least 30 years before. From 30 to 20 years, they thought about it, developed it. You know. 20 to 10 years, they engineered it, tested it, and developed the capability to manufacture it. And 10 years to 1 year, they were manufacturing. And those were the weapons that we fought the Gulf War in 1990. So if we had to fight a war 30 years today, we will be fighting it for what we're developing right now. And unfortunately, what we're developing right now ain't very much. We've gone into a holding process. So, you know, the best hope for all is there won't be any war. Or if there is a war, it'll be real small. And it'll be against a real sophisticated enemy. Will that happen? I don't know. Our track record on guessing what war, where, and with what, and against whom, and for what objectives is abysmal. We haven't done very good on that. You just think back to the wars we fought in the last 30 years, not one of them has been called accurately. And certainly not in the timely manner. These are things I was going to talk about tonight. I don't want to be duplicated, but you know, who would have thought in 1921 that less than 20 years later, this little two-bit nation over there 5,000 miles away would come into Pearl Harbor and attack the United States? Nobody would think that, except one person. And this museum is almost a tribute to him. And the founder of the concept of air power in the United States Air Force wrote a book. And in the book, he said, there will be an attack. And it will come on an early Sunday morning in Honolulu. Because that's where the fleet comes every weekend to give the sailors shore leave. And it will come from the sky, and it will be devastating. And that was written in 1936 by the guy that we court-martialed. General Mitchell, Billy Mitchell. We court-martialed him. He wrote that in 1936. I almost quoted it exactly. That's
All right, so I'll make this quick, I know I'm trying to button things up. But
I'm going-
This is backtrack.
I'm wearing you out there.
Okay, this is backtracking a little. I enjoyed your stories about General and General Carr. I had the honor of flying with both of those gentlemen. I was tail gunner on B-52 standardization through the Field Air Force Base.
Oh, yeah.
And we got there refueling autopilot, and both those gentlemen wanted to fly. And so we were assigned to various projects to go down and they wanted to fly it. And General was just like you said, whatever. And I was told to be quiet because he makes his bad landing, and it wasn't a very good landing. But
No,
that's the
he was a catcher, he wasn't a pitcher.
Yeah, that's right. And General Carr, I got a little confused with him. He was kind of a help guy, you know, and he was strong and everything, although he died young. He wanted a certain flight lunch, and I saw that he got it, and he said it wasn't right, and I said, you got what you ordered. And you said something about putting the knife in you and pushing you. But when our crew got back and everything, we got assigned to a bunch more projects with damn missiles. That we air-to-ground missiles, and we were the first crew to launch successful ones on target out of Florida, you know, all over the Gulf. But then coming back to my story, when we got back from his little refueling with this autopilot, refueling, General Carr, I was promoted to senior master sergeant, and the whole darn crew was promoted. So I learned a lesson. I stood up for my guns, and he liked it.
But you were right.
Yeah.
When you decide to stand up for your guns, make damn sure you're right.
That's my story and my whole airplane career. Sack, I was born in sack. Stand up for yourself and never be wrong.
Well, you mentioned the fact that I was a lawyer, and it's strange that I would be a combat commander and be a lawyer. I was a lawyer. I was a judge advocate, and when the Air Force split out from the Army, they didn't make provision for enough lawyers nor enough engineers. And my roommate and I both got levied on. I was a lawyer, he was an engineer, and that split. And so I served as a lawyer for several years. And then the Judge Advocate General, whose name was Harmon, grounded us that were 80. And I didn't like that. And I didn't come into this profession to be a lawyer. I just happened to be a lawyer. I came in to be a pilot. So I revolted. And I called and made an appointment. I went through the general. You said Air Logistics Command. The name of it was Air Materiel Command, AMC. My old patch is still good. General Rawlings. And I got General Rawlings' permission to go to Washington and talk to the personnel officer. It was then Dr. Stash, and I can't his name in a real minute. So, No, this older than that. Cuter was DCS personnel. So I went up there, I rode the train all night, I got to Washington, and I went to General Cuter's office, and I had an appointment, I think at 10 o'clock or something like that. And he was running around like his hair was on fire. I thought lieutenant generals were all staid and calm. I didn't know they panicked, you know. And he went running out with a bunch of books, and he said, what are you doing, son? I said, I'm waiting to see you, sir. He said, well, I have no time to see you today. I've got to go see the chief. I'll come back tomorrow. I said, there ain't no tomorrow. And he said, well, what's the matter? And I said, that's a serious problem. He said, walk up the hall with me. So we walked up the hall, and he said, what's the matter? I said, I'm a pilot. I've got, 2,500 hours. I'm qualified in the B-29. We're flying B-29s in Korea now, and I've been flying some missions over there. They don't just catch 10. And I'm being grounded. Well, who's grounding you? The Judge Advocate General. Why? Because I'm a lawyer on the JAG list. Well, he can't do that. I said, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here. So he said, go wait in my office. I'll be back to you. So I went back to the office, and I got my choice. And so did the other 133 rated lawyers. About half of them stayed in JAG. That's fine. That was their choice. I did it. Some say I made the wrong decision, I could have been a judge as a good judge. But I wouldn't have had the chance to come talk to you. But I come. Thank you very much. You have a good day.
Thank you, Lee. Generally, we have a couple little items that I'd like to present you. First, a little plaque that's kind of shows you a little bit about us, and we hope that you'll put it someplace where you find it once in a while.
I talked a little bit about missiles too.
That's for Jack. And then we'd like to present you with one of our guidebooks that we got here at the gift shop.
You know, Utah does have a tremendous aerospace heritage. We just happen to be located right at the right place, you know, geographically, for all aviation things. And then, of course, you got the name Hill on the thing only because in today's Air Force, if you take off with a control slot, like Captain Hill, you've been court-martialed. Instead of having a wonderful air base name for you. I'm sure he was a great guy. I'm sure it was not his fault. That's what happened.
Then we'd like to give you, present you with life membership in the Heritage Foundation of Utah.
That means that he's got a short leash on me. He can call me at any time. Give me hell.
Yes. Well, thank you for coming, and I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it being here. Thank you for being tonight for my son and making such a great place for my family to live here and to grow up. They hate to leave. I hate to see them leave, but it'd be good to have them back home. Bye-bye. I'm going to take this.